with it. But before we start with the webinar, we want to share with you some housekeeping rules. The first one is please keep your microphone mute, and if possible as well, for a good connection speed, we will appreciate if you as well can turn off your camera. During presentations, we will have an option to send questions through the chat box by selecting to everyone. But then we will have as well questions, a session where you can do as well questions from follow-up questions, and you can raise your hand. We will run some polls throughout the webinar. The questions will be very straightforward, so a very easy question. If you don't want to answer the question in the moment where the poll is displayed, please, you can always move the poll and change it, take out from the screen, so you can follow the presentations on the slides. As I say, please keep your microphone mute for a good webinar. So, what is our agenda for today? We will have a very brief introduction about the Federation tools and resources and guidelines, and then we will have a second presentation about the local advocacy with governments and communities to end the harmful chhaupadi tradition in rural Nepal by Nepal Red Cross Society. After that, we will have another presentation about the participatory research to improve menstrual hygiene action in disasters in Vanuatu, and understanding as well socio-cultural aspect and locally adapted menstrual hygiene kits. And this presentation is done by Australian Red Cross. We will have, after all the presentations, always some time for Q&A. Have as well after a conclusion time. Who are today the speakers and the moderators? 𝗖ecie and myself will moderate this webinar. We are part of the WASH team in the Federation here in the Secretariat in Geneva, and we work inside of the Health and Care Department. Both 𝗖ecie and myself take care of different WASH issues, but we are the focal persons for hygiene promotion, public health, and menstrual hygiene issues. We as well are very pleased to have two vast experience and with a lot of knowledge speakers. We have Amer Manipudel. He is working with Nepal Red Cross since many years, and he is the deputy director in the WASH division. He works in the national headquarters, but Amar as well, it's one of our main male champions on advocacy in menstrual hygiene management. We have as well Lisa Anatoly. She is the health lead within the International Technical Service team at Australian Red Cross. And Lisa is as well another champion of menstrual hygiene. She has worked very linked with us and support many national societies in Asia-Pacific region in many topics, health, WASH, but as well in menstrual hygiene management. So before we go to the first presentation, that it's about Federation, the tools and the resources, we want you to do the fair poll. The first poll, it's about it's an introductory poll, and we want to know which sector area do you work in, and if you have used any federation, menstrual hygiene management tools or resources, anytime. If you are familiar with them, if you use them, you can please answer your question. If you want, you can move the poll to the right side, and I recommend, if you want, that you do the questions quick, because it's a very easy question. Thank you. So, a little bit of history about menstrual hygiene in the Federation. Yeah, in 2013 and 2016, we started with operational research in many countries, and I am very happy to see that many of the participants come from this country, because this is where we started really the big work on menstrual hygiene management. And when I'm talking about these countries, Somalia, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and Madagascar. We started in these countries doing operational research about what was the work that we were doing. We initially worked in refugee camps, but as well in many operations, emergency operations, and we have done many distribution of menstrual hygiene kits, but as well many satisfaction surveys and participatory focus group discussion, understanding the needs and what the females' preference were. And this is where we, in 2017, finally we got and we agree on a standard, minimum standard content for our menstrual hygiene management kits. And it's where we understand as well which is the department who should take care of the menstrual hygiene management programs, and we decide that WASH unit was the one that we could take, the three components of WASH in a better position. But on the meantime, during this time as well, globally, there were a lot of growing number of national societies who were really actively including menstrual hygiene, not only in the operations, as well as part of a long-term programming. And there is where it was an increasing request for support and tools, and there was really a request from our national societies in looking into improved solutions for menstrual hygiene management. And this was when finally in 2018 we start to work on a menstrual hygiene guideline and tool. We wanted to have something like could be shared with all our national societies, and finally in 2019 we had a review version of what we wanted to share with you, and there was when we finally launched the final version of the menstrual hygiene guideline and tools. We have now available this guideline in different language. We have it in English, we have it in Arabic, we have it in French, in Spanish will come it very soon, but we know that many Asian countries as well are translating it currently. We have it in Bahasa already, it's online, and Letizia will explain you afterwards where to find of these guideline tools. And what I wanted to tell you about the guideline is for who we have developed this guideline. It's for program and operational managers for sure, but it's for national staff and for volunteers as well that can use this guideline in the field. It's a Red Cross and Red Crescent specific, but it's very aligned to all the global tools that it's from external organizations, and as well it's aligned to the hygiene promotion guidelines from the Federation, where we have 7 steps. So each step of action for assessment, designing and preparation, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. So each of these steps have the tools. So for example, we have tools that are very relevant for the assessment in analyzing barriers and enables for the behavior change. We have as well focus group discussion, questionnaires for satisfaction surveys, and we have as well other very important tools like how to do or plan or do a log frame for a menstrual hygiene program. But I finish here and I allow my colleague 𝗖ecie to continue with where to find our resources. Over to you, 𝗖ecie.
Thanks, Alex. Can you hear me well? Just making a trial here.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So in terms of learning resources, we have a few, and we wanted to start by presenting to you the learning platform. So we have two communities of practice, one on menstrual hygiene management, and one is more on general wash, but I'll explain you both. So the menstrual hygiene management community of practice was created a few years back. And as you can see from the slide, there's a bit more than 400 members on the platform itself. You will find certainly the resources that Alex just mentioned to you. So there's the guideline, there is this case study compilation that we are presenting to you today, but there's also much more in the sense that, as you see, there is a topic section. And there you will see that, for example, there's the webinar section. So for instance, this webinar or other similar events would be presented on the menstrual hygiene management community, but also other types of information. So for instance, if there is a funding opportunity for MHM projects, this is something that we would also advertise on this community of practice. The also other interesting aspect of the community of practice is that there is a space for interaction, in the sense that if someone has a question to ask and they want to have more information on a specific document, a proper discussion can be created around the document. And I also want to emphasize that, yes, of course, we share internal IFRC documents, but if we find an external document that is interesting to share, these will also be found on the menstrual hygiene community. In terms of the WASH network, the principle is very similar in the sense that the format is the same, but this WASH network has been created 1 year ago now, more or less, at the onset of the COVID crisis, together with the Austrian Red Cross. And the idea there was really to, provide a platform that would give information to people on the field and to people around the world, actually, that were interested in on how to face COVID-19 in terms of from a WASH perspective, right? So this has really been the main focus on the WASH network for the moment. Sorry, but at the moment we want to keep the focus on COVID-19, but also to open it up a bit more to also other topics. And that's why you will see in the next few weeks that we will start treating topics such as WASH and protection, gender and inclusion, WASH and cash, for instance. So I would really encourage you to register to both of this community of practice, because I'm sure you can find information that you would be interested in. Now, how do you do this? So if you're not registered to the learning platform yet, you can go either on the link that is on the presentation there, but I do realize it's not the most user-friendly way now to discover it. But if you also just type learning platform IFRC on Google, you will find it, and it's absolutely free, so everyone can register, and then you can access this community of practice by yourself. Next, please, Alex. So the other resource that we really wanted to share with you today is the What's a Mission Assistant. So I'm sure that many of you in this call today know it already, but we just wanted to show it to you again, because this is really the WASH resource that we use to share WASH guidelines. So if for instance, we have the latest WASH MHM guideline published, we will put it on the WASH submission assistant. So it's really a repository of documents, of WASH documents that we use to share with people, with WASH colleagues around the world. And specifically about MHM, so we have a page, as you can see on the slide. I mean, I realize that the text is a bit small, but if once you'll go on the website, you'll see it's pretty straightforward. We have a menstrual hygiene management page that, of course, shares and where you can find the documents that we've been talking about today, but there's also much more. So, for instance, we have advocacy videos and training videos on the page, but also other resources that we haven't covered today. And also there's an external resources section at the end of the page. So we also try always, to link it to what exists out there beside what we do internally in terms of IFRC work. So in that page, as Alex was mentioning, we really try to, have everything translated as much as we can. So for instance, the guideline that she was referring to has been translated in many languages, and we will certainly go through the process of translating this guideline, this compilation that we are presenting to you today in the next few months. So really have a look at the website, because you will find a lot of documents, and as she was mentioning, a lot of them are also in Word. So if you just want to, download them in your language and adapt them to your local context, this can be easily done. Next, Alex, please. So finally, before giving the floor to our other presenters today, I really wanted to touch upon the case study compilation. So as Alex was telling you, there's a long tradition in the IFRC to try to promote menstrual hygiene management work. And the last work that we've done is this case study compilation that we have started presenting to you today with the Vanuatu and Nepal case study. So this is really the work of last year. The idea was really, to try to put together a document that was practical and that was giving how-to recommendations and tips that national societies have learned, tools that have been developed throughout MHM programs that really other national societies, but also other MHM actors could learn from, adapt, and apply in their own MHM actions. Today you will hear from 2 case studies, but this compilation covers 6 other countries. So you will see that there are experiences from Malawi, Iraq, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Cote d'Ivoire, Pakistan, and of course Vanuatu and Nepal that you will hear from today. We are aiming to collect more case studies in the next 2 years and to add some to this compilation. So if there are national societies present in this call that would like to share more about their MHM experiences, please feel free to contact us. And finally, as I was mentioning, this is really the first webinar of 4 webinars that will come. The next one will be in March on the 26th, then we will have one on the 30th of April, and finally the last one will be on Menstrual Hygiene Day. So you will be able to hear about this compilation a few other times and to hear about the case studies that we've been compiling. Thanks.
Thanks so much, 𝗖ție, for showing us where the documents and where we can find our resources. And now it's time for share the results of our first poll. So we have 100 participants in the call. We see that 43 of them are WASH, 34 are coming from the health sector, 18 protection, gender and inclusion. We have a lot of disaster management people in the call. I see 25%, shelter, and 50% are other. And have you used any federation menstrual hygiene management? 29% say yes, no, never 33, and no, but I would like 42. So you know now where to find all our resources, and we will share as well with you for sure this presentation and the links how to access to all these resources. So please, as I see here, you would like to, you should look at them and use them and adapt them to your context. So I would like now, before I handle over to Amar, I would like to now try to do this, excuse me, the second poll. I don't know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, you launched the second poll, Alex. If you can just put it full screen, the slides.
Yeah. So the second poll is about, is there a government policy on menstrual hygiene in your country? Yes, we have. Yes, but menstrual hygiene is part of other policies. Is in development now. No, we don't have. I don't know. Are there taboos and restrictions on people who are menstruating in your country? Please answer the question. Yes, a lot. Yes, some. Not much. No, I don't know. Thanks. And I will now hand over the microphone to Amar Pudel from Nepal Red Cross to present his presentation. Thanks so much, Amar.
Yeah, thank you, Alexandra. Yeah, good afternoon from Nepal. This case study is related to our case study book, step number 6, that is the advocacy. And this case study we are presenting here is related to our very harmful chhaupadi tradition in Nepal. I will tell you what is the chhaupadi a little bit later on. This case study we prepare through the different partner support. The one of the supporter is Australian Red Cross through the DFAT, CSOS, Swiss Red Cross. These are our prime partner to produce this case study. And we took this case study far and western mountain area of Nepal, where this chhaupadi tradition is very rooted, taboos and myth in the country. The next slide. And this is specifically, this is related to the one area, the Bajang, where is the chhaupadi is very deep-rooted culture, and that area we had one special program, and other chhaupadi area, Swiss Red Cross has also such type of program, and then both program we collected the informations, and this project we implemented this menstruation-related, management-related activity in 5 village development committee. Next slide. And this advocacy case study is related to the chhaupadi practice. Actually, the chhaupadi practice is in our culture when the menstruating woman start the menstruation, she has to leave the house and have to stay in a small hut, one room house, a little bit far from their home, and they have to stay the whole menstruation period. That is the culture. That is a very rooted culture, and generally 4 to 6 days they have to stay in that very congested one single room hut, and after finishing that menstruation period, and they only can return to home. That is the practice, and that is harmful practice we already mentioned in our case study. Our taboos and myth is generally in our culture, in our Hindu culture, generally we assume the blood during the menstruation is not pure, it unclean, impure. That from it start this bad culture actually, and then other taboos are there, and the taboos are related to the movement. Some taboos are related to the movement, mean there is a special restriction on the movement, and some taboos are related to the intake of food. This have to eat, this not have to eat, like that. And some taboos are related to the seeing the relatives and go to the temple. And also those areas during the menstruation, the girls generally do not permission to go to school, but it's gradually changing. That culture also here. Next slide. And then this culture and the practice is the local culture. If we see overall our country, this culture is not spread over the country. In the special area, we already mentioned you, the far and mid-western mountain area, that culture is very rooted. And then menstruation, different type of practices all over the country, but this chhaupadi practice is there. That is the culture. You know, chhau means that menstruation hut, means small one single room household where menstruating women during the menstruation have to stay. That called the chhau. And chhaupadi is the traditions. So we are applying, and this tradition is applying the different degree in the different type of like menstruating women. If the newly the first time menstruation girls, they have to stay a little bit long, and they apply the strict rule. If the married woman and the married woman are the different rule. So rule is a little bit different, but they have to go to the hut during the menstruation period. And then culture is some places when they finish the chhau period or menstruation period and they return to home, they have to drink the cow pee. Actually, that means that is the culture of purity. And then some culture, they also spray the cow pee on their head. Actually, that is the culture. Only then women can enter the home. Actually, that is the next slide. So that is the practice in our those area. Next slide. And then if you see in the picture, I think there are different type of like the menstruation hut. It's depend the capacity of household and the capacity of community and also the concept. You can see some household a little bit good one, and some household is very temporary, like using the tarpaulin, and some house menstruation hut is using the straw. So different type, but very congested and very small and very suffocated type of house also there, and they have to stay. Next slide. Yes, and then yes, and then you can see every year in our country, you can see the different very bad news from the international media as well. I just cut and paste the BBC News and the CNN News. In those, during the menstruation period, when the menstruating woman is staying that hot, chhau, that time there and also the high chance of rape as well, because security is very poor, and then room is very congested and is small, and then it is far from the house, and hygienic condition is not good. Actually, this is the practice. And then if we see those challenges, we had the chhaupadi eradication directive in 2005, but that directive is not effective because there is no any like a penalty mentions in that directive. But in 2019, government passed the new bills. In that new bills, we can see that there is a specific clauses for the penalty. So if anybody compelled to go to the chhau or menstruation hut, there is a penalty now. So it's a little bit changing. And then, you know, it start from house and it start from the old generations. If you see in the pictures, his grandfather is just motivating the girls to go to the chhau during the menstruation period because it's a culture like that. So this is very challenging, but the gradually it is reducing also. Please, next slide. And we can see the chhaupaditradi districts, our Swiss Red Cross and the Australian Red Cross also supported those area. And then in that area, these chhaupaditradi traditions have to stay in the menstruation hut tradition is still now, but the degree is little bit reduced, but it's still now. Next slide. Next. And then chhaupadi practice have different type of problem. You know, we had also one survey, and then the different organization conducted different survey, and we had also conducted one survey. And then the survey tells that hot condition is very unhygienic. If we go to see, the condition is very bad. And then there is no other sanitation facilities, and there is no access of water generally. And then during that period, we based on our survey, there is some restriction of food, especially the nutrition food, and that time they have to eat the chapati, very low calorie type of food, not nutrient food. And then school attendance is dropped actually. And then this is the problem we seen that time, so that we designed the menstruation or the chhaupadi actually eradication campaign in our project. Next slide. Yes, and then during the project, we had a lot of discussion with our partners, local government, and the social leader, and we designed 4 types of tools and approach, especially the number 4 MHM in school. That type of tools, we are using the Swiss supported project in special 5 districts. That is very specialized tools. And then social awareness tools, chhaupadi free place campaign tools, and Sanisop tools. We applied in this Australian supported Bajang districts. Please, next slide. And then the tools is very simple, means when we start the campaign, then we unpack the social awareness approach. That approach is especially cross-sects the all type of people to aware what is the menstruations, is blood pure or impure. This type of awareness we reach every household, every corner through the different like a structure. That structure is temporary, but still we establish that structure. Like there is women group, we also use the women group, traditional healer and priest groups, and male groups. And in our project, we have the mobilizer, motivator, and motivator mobilizer also use their channel. And then we use this channel vertically, horizontally, and all section of people we try to convince them. This is our first tools we unpack during our project. The next, and the next tool is related to chhaupadi free village campaign approach. That approach, when we aware the maximum people in our targeted project area, then the awareness of people is little bit increased. Then we started to make the chhaupadi free village campaign plan. And then the first place, we involve the local leader in this campaign. And then we also established the joint monitoring system in that campaign. And at last, we prepare some indicator for chhaupadi free village announcement. And at the last, we announce the chhaupadi free village, because we start from the cluster, then the village, then the ward, then the village development committee and the municipal level. That way we start this campaign. And the same things in our Swiss Red Cross supported program, we apply this approach. The approach is child to guardian approach. In our Swiss Red Cross supported program, we aware the children in school, and we try to capacitate them, and we try to institutionalize the facility in the school level, like a provision of MHM pad in school, MHM focal or health focal teacher appointed, and then the CGT friendly being the child and gender friendly toilet or facility construct. These all things we do, and also do the policy advocacy. When the children learn this, and they carry this learning to the household actually, and then that is the vice versa actually. And we have also some program in community and also in school, and they exchange the knowledge, and then that cross the knowledge so that it strengthens the chhaupadi free campaign actually. The next slide. And then in this MHM and school program, actually we have some specific component. Next slide. That component is related to classroom session on MHM in school, and then also the pad making training to the children, and also the pad stock and focal point at a school, so that if any menstruating girls, any complication in school or any like a pad need, then they can access very easily that type of things. And the gender friendly toilet means there is a specific like a criteria for the gender friendly toilet. We have in the menstruation guideline, we have also the female friendly toilet, the same type of criteria we have. And then also the advocacy for the curriculum actually, the curriculum developed by the government side, education ministry, and we also advocated the education ministry, mean the tier to put the curriculum in the books, the school books, and then we can see that curriculum in our health book as well. Next. So this is also our MHM intervention in school. Next slide. And then challenges. Actually, these challenges is related to the project. In one of the important challenges is actually it is difficult to change the mindset where the three layer of generation is staying in same home. Like there is a grandfather, the father, and the grandson. If that type of household is there, then it is difficult to change the mindset, because grandfather pushing that culture a little bit more. So that was also one of the like a challenge we seen in our project area. And then, you know, in our Hindu culture, in our culture, the patriarchal society is very strong. That means every section, the male dominant decision is happening. So that in the case of menstruations, the decision generally in the household take by the mail, but that practice is gradually reducing. It's a good thing, but it's still, that is the challenge is in our society. And also if you go to the rural villages, we cannot find the good material to prepare the menstruation pad at the local level. Also the market, it's difficult to buy those type of things, and also affordability is also one of the issue. So that in the community, generally tradition way, the women use the old rags and used cloth as a pad. So this is also one of the challenge. And so that in our program through the school and through the community, we also train them how to use the local pad or reusable pad of the community. And then it's a deep rooted, and it's a mindset actually. Mindset, it is difficult to eradicate this mindset immediately, so it takes time. And then that mindset is we have to targeted approach, and we have to mainstreaming approach. Both approach we have to apply. Next slide. And then yeah, please, next slide. And then we have lesson learned. The lesson learned is actually, if there is a 3-generation household, we give them the suggestion that if there is a grandfather or grandmother, if we expose them in the urban area, in some like a civilized or urban area, then those people can understand these things, because in those areas the people use the same toilet sometimes, and the toilet is for all like that. And if we give the exposure, then it is easy. So then the cross section, I already said, we have to not focus to one section of like a people. We have to go very horizontally, longitudinally, and diagonally. Every corner of people we have to aware them, and then it is easy to like eradicate this. And then entrepreneurship, pad making entrepreneurship is one of the successful like tools, and then we use the 𝗖cie tools for that case. And also the accessibility, actually if there is accessibility in his school, in the community for the facility, then it is easy. So that we also work on the accessibility part. We also construct the CGD toilet, gender-friendly toilet, disability-friendly toilet, a different type of toilet based on their need. And also the campaign, community to school, school to community. This approach also one of the good lesson for us. And then I think the last slide. Thank you. Thank you everybody for active listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thanks so much, Amar, for your insight and for the presentation. It was really an important topic for all of us. I will now launch the pool. We have asked you, is there a government policy on menstrual hygiene management in your country? We see that 13%, only 13% of the responses are yes. We have a menstrual hygiene policy. 12% say yes, but the menstrual hygiene policy is part of other policies. 5% of say that it's in development, and 22% no, we don't. 49% we don't know. And when we ask the questions about are there taboos and restrictions on people who menstruating in your country, 22% say yes, lots, 27% yes, some, 27% not much, 22% no, and only 4% responded we don't know. So thanks all for the tools. Now it will be time for questions for Amar. I think I hand over to 𝗖ecie if you want yourself to raise your hand. If not,
thanks, Alex.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much. So we have actually a few questions in the chat. Just for the sake of time, we will take 3 questions now and then give the floor to Lisa. But then if, of course, we have more time later on to cover more questions, we'll be happy to come back to these questions for Ammar. So Ammar, there's a question from Christian Makauka.
Yes.
I will ask you, Christian, do you prefer to say it yourself, or do you want me to? I can read the question just in case you can take the floor. Up to you.
I saw the I saw the questions. Actually, have you used menstruation cup in your campaign? No, actually, menstruation cup.
No, Ammar, this is another question. Wait, just a second. This is I was referring to another question. So the question was, did women also express some positive side of the practice, like having some alone time or such, or something similar? So any positive side mentioned for the practice? Thanks.
Yeah, positive side actually is related to religion. So the religious people feel some positive if we follow this practice. And then due to the unhygienic condition of hut, and then little bit distance from the home, and then security issue, and then also the fear, terror, this issue, generally there is no such positive sign. But if single girls, if she can stay the whole 4 to 6 days in that hut, that means her fear and terror may be decreased. That may be a positive, but the overall is a negative and harmful tradition in our culture, so that the government and every section of society just doing the campaigning to eradicate this harmful. Yes, that is about the religious people. They have positive vibes actually, if we like follow this. And also, you know, menstruating women, or in our culture, sometimes in some household, if there is a like a woman and like a man cannot use the same toilet also in some household, that also culture. So in some household we can see the 2 toilet as well. So if we construct the 2 toilet, that may be a positive, but the resource wise it's difficult for the poor people. But I cannot see the more positive things. It's just a maximum thing is negative. Yeah, from my side actually.
Thanks, yes. Ammar. Thanks a lot. Then we have a question from Lorena. Again, I will read it, but if you feel like taking the floor, go for it. So the questions are, where the agents of change from inside the villages themselves, and which groups were targeted to become champions of MHM chhaupadi-free villages?
Yeah, actually, change agent in our project term, generally the DFAT or the Austrian Red Cross use the change agent, because there is a three layer actually. One is the delivery team, and then the change agent, and then the beneficiaries. The change agent is in between the delivery team and the beneficiaries, and then we capacitate the first the change agent, and then change agent change the community, and they also change themselves as well. That is the concept actually. And then change agent is government, local government personnel are also the change agent. Our motivator, mobilizer are also the change agent. Social leader, women groups, and then FCSB, the female health worker, these are the change agent. And we more focus these things, women and male groups actually, and also the priest and also the traditional healer, because priest and traditional healer is the deep-rooted like a practice in our society as well. If they say anything, the community people easily accept. So we motivate those people as well, and through their process, they also say something about the MHM during when they go to their household, the traditional healer and priest. That way also we use the traditional healer and priest and also women, and also the social leader and the local government, actually. So it's a diverse focus because this is the rooted culture. So to eradicate the rooted culture, we have to focus the diversely, the all people at the awareness level. Then after that, when the people awareness level is increased, then we have to focus a little bit more on local government, so that the local government support for the community to prepare the 𝗖ப்படுि free village announcement plan. So that plan we can roll out. That things we applied actually. Thank you. Thank you for question.
Thanks, Amar. And a last question before we move to Lisa's presentation is from Doreen. So she asks, apart from gender-friendly toilets, did you take in consideration persons with disabilities? Thank you.
Yeah. Actually, in our case, we have the CGD toilet manual published by the UNICEF as a primarily, then the one by the Nepal government. And also we have the MHM guideline, IFRC MHM guideline, later one, we also use that guideline as well. CGD mean, C mean children friendly, G mean gender friendly, D mean disability friendly. Nowadays we also add E mean environment friendly also. CGDE. Those manual is available. And then what are the features to attain that friendly feature? That is especially that is like I mentioned very clearly. So we use that things, and also we have the 3-star approach in our country. That approach said the toilet room and the student ratio. In case of the children, mean the girls, that ratio should be 25:1, mean one toilet room should be 25 children. In case of boys, it is 35:1, mean one boys room should be 35 boys. That type of indicator also we have. We also follow that indicator. So not only gender friendly, we also apply this. But in this case, our IFRC manual is a woman friendly toilet criteria is there. The same thing is gender friendly. We also apply the other feature as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Amar. And I see there's a hand raised, so I know we need to move to Lisa's presentation. But Navid, if you want to ask your question, go for it, and then we will move to Lisa's presentation. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Navid, you're on mute, so I don't know if
Navid.
Okay, so indeed, perhaps it's only a hand, or I don't know, a raise hands without talking. So, but before we go to Lisa's presentation, let us do the last poll, guys. I mean, before I give the floor to Lisa, our next poll, it's about, does your national society, country, organization preposition emergency kits? Yes. Menstrual hygiene kits? Yes. Dignity kits? Yes. Family hygiene kits? No. I don't know. Have you been involved in any menstrual hygiene training? Yes, as a facilitator. Yes, as a participant. No, but I would like to. No, never. So yes, so in meantime, I will give now the floor to Lisa. Hope, Lisa, are you there from Australia? So long, long way.
I am here.
Okay, perfect, Lisa.
I'm not going to turn my camera on though, because yeah, thanks, 𝗖ecie, everyone. I'm having a few issues with internet, so I'm just going to leave my camera off and hope that we get through it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfectly.
Great. Okay. All right. So thanks for the opportunity to present today. So I'm actually presenting on behalf of Vanuatu Red Cross. So next slide, please. This study was undertaken in 2019, and it was actually a collaboration between Australian Red Cross, Vanuatu Red Cross and James Cook University, with funding from the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and in-kind support from James Cook University. And I just wanted to especially acknowledge Nikita from Vanuatu Red Cross, who was the brainchild that came up with the idea for this work, and for all the staff and volunteers there who were involved in the data collection, and for the community members that took part. Next slide, please. So those of you from our region will know that Vanuatu is one of the most disaster-prone countries in the world. It has a very active national society, and in recent years, they've been really trying to do a better job of integrating menstrual hygiene management considerations into disaster preparedness and response programming. And so this study responds to their needs to better, or their identified need to better contextualise their MHM response, particularly in disaster settings, and respond to the many challenges around safe and dignified management of menstruation in Vanuatu, especially in disaster circumstances. Next slide, please. So this was, the study had two aims. So firstly, to determine the sanitary protection needs and preferences of women and girls in Vanuatu, with the view to inform items for inclusion into MHM kits for pre-positioning and distribution in disaster response, but also to explore the socio-cultural aspects of menstruation that were likely to impact on menstrual hygiene management in disaster settings, so that these things could be taken account of to strengthen Vanuatu Red Cross programming and interventions around safe and dignified menstrual hygiene management in disasters. And it was approved by an ethics committee in Australia and also in Vanuatu. Next slide, please. So it was a mixed method study. There were 4 study sites, so 1 urban and 1 rural on each of the islands of 𝗖cie and Espirito Santo. And those different locations were chosen to reflect a modern kind of urban environment as well as a more traditional environment. So after some initial community engagement activities, 192 girls and women were recruited across 4 sites. And the recruitment was purposive to basically facilitate recruitment into pre-identified participant groups. And these were based on marital status and age, so rather than age alone. So whether they fell into the category of young single, younger married, or older married. And this is in line with cultural norms there. So the participants were then randomly allocated within their group and location to receive an MHM kit with one of 4 sanitary products that they were to trial. So 2 of those products were disposable and locally available, and the other 2 products were reusable. And one of those was locally procured, locally available, and one was imported. And the kits also contained locally procured underwear, laundry soap, personal soap, an information sheet about menstruation, and one of the 4 sanitary products, and it was all in a solid bucket, like you can see in the photo there. And education on the use, care and disposal of whatever product was received was also provided. Next slide, please. So in terms of the results, so qualitative data was collected via focus group discussions, and there was also a very small number of interviews conducted with women living with a disability to better understand their concerns and preferences. And you can just see on the top there that the focus group participants were, fairly reasonably distributed across the reproductive age group. So in the focus groups and the interviews, we explored these items on the left-hand side. So menstruation knowledge, attitudes and practices, and the impact of local beliefs and taboos. The women and girls' experience of using the supplied sanitary products, the barriers and enablers that they perceive to safe and dignified MHM in a disaster context, and also their suggestions for interventions to improve MHM in this context as well. Next slide, please. So in addition, quantitative data was collected via a short paper-based survey that was administered at the time of the focus group discussions as well. So the survey included a simple Likert scale of emoji faces where people were asked to rate the sanitary product that they trialled according to 5 categories. So fit, comfort, absorbency, smell, ease of changing, and whether they would recommend it for others. So a bit more about the details of what we heard in the research. Next slide, please. So menstruation in Vanuatu is still very much a taboo subject that's associated with shame and embarrassment. So there's a lot of fear of leakage and staining, which leads to reduced participation in community activities during menstruation. And restrictive practices are still very common. So they include things like not preparing food or working in the garden and sleeping separately from their husbands when they've got their period. So the role of women in society and the need for their greater involvement in disaster planning was also commented on. Next slide, please. So privacy was a key concern around the care and or disposal of pads. So it was very common for women in Vanuatu to actually wash out disposable pads before they dispose of them. So they'd wash them out and then hide them until the end of their cycle before disposing of them down a bush toilet or burning them or putting them out in a garbage collection. And the driver behind this seemed to be concern around the smell of the blood and that would attract flies and dogs. Washing and drying of reusable materials or pads is done very discreetly and secretly, and that's both out of respect for others and to avoid teasing and harassment by boys and men. And we heard that women, they'll wash their underpants and pads separately to other laundry from, the men in their household and then dry them somewhere out of sight. So this might mean hiding them amongst or underneath other laundry, so like under a sarong or something like that, or hanging them out overnight or hanging them inside their rooms. While shared family toilets and bathrooms are unusual, are usual, women and girls are particularly careful to thoroughly wash away any visible blood when they're bathing, and they tend to want to bathe more frequently, so 2 or 3 times a day. And these socio-cultural contexts and cultural practices were very much reflected in the concerns that we heard that were particularly focused on disaster settings. So next slide, please. So this next slide is about the particular disaster-related MHM concerns that we heard about. So not surprisingly, one of the most frequent concerns that we heard about was lack of access to pads during a disaster, because obviously in a setting of rapid displacement, women might forget to pack their pads, and they also might have challenges around availability and access in terms of buying pads after that event, if roads are impassable or shops are closed. They also commented on the experience of buying pads at a time when resources are scarce and resources need to be diverted towards disaster recovery. There was a lot of talk about the lack of privacy in evacuation centres, and the potential for staining and how that was associated with shame and loss of dignity. So very much embarrassment, shame and fear of being teased by men and boys during distribution of non-food items was frequently mentioned. And women also talked about having trouble attending a distribution if it was too far away, or, you know, if they had other responsibilities such as childcare. So next slide, please. Many of the participants also expressed concerns around the water supply, so both for their personal hygiene use, but also for washing out their clothes and their reusable pads. So apart from the potential lack of water, there was also concern about men's attitudes towards their increased water supply needs during menstruation, you know, how that would be viewed by the men and boys. Sharing of bathroom and toilet facilities in evacuation centres poses many issues for women in this context. And this includes the additional time that's needed, you know, to go to the toilet, to change pads when you've got your period, and the need to wash more frequently and make sure that no traces of blood are left behind. And the usual practice of washing and discreetly drying and disposing of pads obviously becomes a whole lot more challenging in a disaster setting. So the next couple of slides talk about some of the solutions that were identified. Actually, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. We're still talking about the needs and preferences. No, that's fine. Keep going, Alexandra. Yeah. So women, they wanted to be much more better included in disaster planning so that their needs and concerns could be addressed. And they very clearly felt that raising the awareness around MHM issues with boys and men would lead to an improved understanding of women's and girls' needs and help, you know, reduce the teasing and harassment that is quite common. And ideally, they felt that MHM kits would be distributed by women and separately to other distributions and privately, you know, away from the men and boys. Information, they felt that information about distribution needs to be communicated very directly through targeted channels to reach younger girls who might be more embarrassed to come forward when distributions are occurring. And there was also a whole lot of specific but probably unsurprising recommendations around the wash infrastructure that you can see there on the left-hand side. And women were also very considered in their discussion about sanitary product preferences. So next slide, please. So in terms of the preferences around products, so women and girls were quite familiar with using disposable pads and reusable cloths, but very few were familiar with specifically designed reusable pads. So, you know, like AFRI pads, for example. They were more familiar with using homemade kind of options. The context of the disaster and access to sufficient water was a really key factor in determining preference and product type. So, you know, if there was very poor access to water, then the preference was around disposable pads as opposed to reusable. Next slide, please. So the next couple of slides just show some graphs from the quantitative survey that was collected around product ratings for the 2 disposable products that we looked at. So the lighter colours at the top of the slide indicate a higher level of satisfaction. And you can see that absorbency and leakage was the area with the least satisfaction across both products, with 34% of the women that trialled Max-Free and 29% of the women who trialled Modas either neutral or unhappy with the product preferences, with the product performance, sorry. And overall, Max-Free had a slightly higher level of satisfaction across most areas. and 90% of the women who trialled that would recommend the product, compared to 80% of those who trialled Modis. Next slide, please. So the next one is about the reusable products that were trialled. So of the two options, the women who trialled AFRA pads were more happy or very happy across the 5 areas that were assessed, and 97% said that they would recommend the product. There were lower levels of satisfaction with the local product, particularly around absorbency and leakage and performance in that regard. And the AFRA pads were also considerably cheaper than the local product, even once they were imported. But there's a lot of work going on in the Pacific right now around trying to increase or improve the supply of really good absorbent materials to Pacific countries, and support micro enterprise, so that that cost difference and the preferences that we saw in the research might change in the future, because women were very keen to support the local product, as you'd expect. Thanks. Next slide. So as I mentioned, we did a very small number of interviews with women living with a disability, and the challenge was actually recruiting women in this group rather than not wanting to interview more. So there was one woman who was visually impaired and another woman who had mobility issues in a wheelchair. And rather than randomly allocate the product for these 2 women, as we did with the other products, we offered them a choice, to help get a better understanding of what their preferences might be. So the disability experience of these women had not just an impact on the physical perspective and the preferences that they had, but also very much psychologically. So their concerns about what others might feel about them has resulted in a sense of social isolation, and the preference to stay close to their homes when they were menstruating. And this obviously becomes incredibly more important in the context of a disaster and kit distribution. So the women that we spoke to actually managed their menstrual hygiene as independently as possible and wanted to do that. And they had quite strong preferences for the products that they chose. And, I guess it just highlights the point that these individual needs and preferences very much need to be taken into account during distribution processes when we're thinking about women and girls with disability, as opposed to, providing something that we might think they want. They really need to have a voice in that process. And these women were very concerned about the challenges that they'd face in an evacuation setting. And there were lots of concerns about the design of wash facilities, but improving the wash design, making them more accessible and private, could alleviate some of these challenges. So I think the next slide is the last one, please. So in terms of recommendations around programming and interventions for Vanuatu Red Cross, we got a very good sense of the contents of MHM kits that would be locally acceptable. So, a choice of disposable and reusable options that might be included, as well as other items that might be useful. And we got a sense of, preferences around distribution practices and how they occur, and some of the outstanding challenges that we have still around procurement processes, and thinking about if they do want to look at the AfriPad option, thinking about a sustainable kind of way that they might be imported. But as I said before, if the local product becomes more competitive, hopefully this won't become a problem in the future. So in terms of wash facilities, the recommendations were very much around coordinating with the wash cluster to try and cement minimum standards for MHM into response programming. So, things like separate male, female latrines, MHM friendly latrines and bathing facilities, and making sure that there's a place to wash and dry underwear and reusables, and also obviously a disposable option. And finally, the other thing was thinking about making sure that we recognise and respond to MHM needs and preferences of women and girls with disabilities to take a more inclusive approach. I think that's my final slide. Yes, thank you, Alexandra.
Thanks so much, Lisa. It was a very informative and insightful presentation. Thanks for sharing. I think it's very important for all national societies who still don't have preposition hygiene kits to learn from this great experience. So, but before I give the floor to 𝗖ecie to check some of the raised hands for doing questions to you, and as well, or checking in the chat if there is questions, I will only before share the results from you, Paul. And the answers are: does your national society, country, organization preposition emergency kits? It's only 13% of them answered that yes, they have menstrual hygiene kits. Dignity kits, it's 20%, family kits, 23%, no, 16, and I don't know, 28%. And have you been involved in any menstrual hygiene training? 25%, a lot of them already yes as facilitator, 24 as participant, and 48 know what they would like to, and 13% they never participated in the training, in a menstrual hygiene training. So thanks for all the participants to answer the poll, and I think the poll, and I think I pass the microphone to 𝗖ecie for the questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Alex, and thanks, Lisa, for the very interesting presentation. So we have a few questions in the chat, and I would just encourage participants, if they want to also raise their hands and take the floor, please feel free to do so. So Lisa, from Adrian, we have a few questions. The first one is, did you randomly assign products to users, or were respondents allowed to pick a product of preference? And I mean, I think you answered this partially in your presentation afterwards, but did you have any information on product preferences before this project started?
Yeah, so we did randomly assign the products for everyone except the women and girls with a disability, because we felt that we only had a small number and we really wanted to get a sense of what they would want to use if they had a choice. So we didn't randomly assign it for them. And in terms of preferences for before the trial, yes, we did ask about that, and it varied from kind of between urban and rural areas, and also between younger women and older women. So my recollection is that younger women tended to have a preference for, you know, the commercially available products, whereas the older women, particularly in the traditional areas, were you know, more comfortable with using a reusable product. I think, was that the end of that question, 𝗖ecie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks. So Adrian has some other questions, but I will just see in the chat if we have any other participant asking, and then I will come back to you, Adrian. So from Doreen, when it comes to wash facilities, was there much emphasis put on the type of toilets built and the locks?
Yes, so there was lots of discussion. So we did an activity during the research where we asked women and girls to, you know, to draw what their ideal kind of latrine might be. And yeah, so they talked about things like, yeah, having a lock on the inside, not on the outside, having a light, you know, for safety, having a bin actually inside the toilet for disposal, so that they don't have to carry something out and, you know, put it in a public place, and having a solid door. So, you know, sometimes in disaster settings, it might be, you know, tarpaulin or something like that, but they were very keen that they wanted a solid door as opposed to something that was flimsy, so something that would offer more privacy. And I think there was a second part of the question that I've forgotten. Can you remind me what that was? You're on mute.
Sorry.
Yeah. Was there
sorry.
a second part?
I think you covered most of it. Sorry, I'm just going back to the question.
No worries.
Yeah, it feels like,
Okay.
but I mean, feel free to jump in if the question wasn't covered. Then we have a question on cups, if you considered using them.
Yes, we did consider it, and we talked about it with the National Society, but they just felt though, so that in the Pacific and in places like Vanuatu particularly, that there's still a lot of taboos and sensitivities around touching the genitals, and they just thought that, you know, there's no way something like this would fly as an option. So even tampons are very, very rarely used, and if they are, it tends to be, you know, like younger women who have been students abroad and who have come back. So yeah, it's curious, because I know even in, you know, some African countries that that cups are being used, but the National Society just felt that it just wasn't going to fly in Vanuatu. So yeah, we thought about it, but we didn't go down that route.
Yeah, I understand. So there's another question from Adrian that mentions something very important, that he says, among the key findings is the need to involve, of course, men and boys, and that women and girls perceive this as beneficial to addressing their menstrual health and hygiene needs. So actually, this is a question for us, Alex. Does the Red Cross or Crescent have any tools and or guidance material for including men and boys? So I'll give you the floor, Alex, but just to mention that in the guideline that we have, in the menstrual hygiene management guideline, there is a part on I mean, that mentions the importance, of course, of involving men and boys. So I'll invite you to have a look at that. And also, we have actually more case studies coming on this also specific aspect. So it would be good if you can attend the next webinar, so you can hear more. But just as a specific tool, there's a section in our guideline that refers to that. But Alex, I don't know if you want to mention anything else.
No, I think you covered very well, and I think as well the two presentations. I mean, Lisa from Vanuatu explained very well how important, and as well Nepal, how important it is to involve males in this discussion. Thank you.
All right, so I'm conscious of the time. It's 25 past and we have 5 minutes left. We still have one slide for you for take-home messages. So I would suggest we conclude the presentation, and then if we have 1 minute left, maybe potentially we can still respond to one question. But really feel free to share any questions, and if we're not able to answer to you, we'll try to answer to you to these questions by email later on. Thanks.
Thanks so much, both of you. And I think what we want to is it's have a summary of what we will take home message from these two amazing presentation and so informative presentation. I think one of the first one, and I think we have no doubts, is the importance of understanding the social culture context. It's key. I mean, we learned from both presentations a lot about restrictions and taboos on women and girls during menstruation. We got as well from Amar the information about all the generations, how they think about, and we heard about examples of Vanuatu on the gender roles during disasters. So I think this is one of our main ones. Understanding well the social culture context is key for us to design and then implement our projects and disaster operation. The other one, it's as well take advantage of national level advocacy, and I think all of us need to have a stronger voice on menstrual hygiene and to change, you know, and to be able to change in a very particular role. We are the in the countries, we work with other lines of ministers of health, and so it's very important, I guess, for us to get a stronger voice on menstrual hygiene and trying, as well as the case of Nepal, changing and trying to push for changing national policy. The question from Adrian, it's very important. Always involve men in menstrual hygiene actions. And I think this is key for our programs to success. We know that men are often household decision makers. We know as well that they're spending money on purchasing pads or pain relief. Many times it's the man who takes this decision. And as well, men can as well help us, you know, advocate and try to change and perpetuate as well taboos or restrictive practice for women and for the daughters. Yeah, so it's key as well, for sure. Building the momentum for menstrual hygiene in school, use schools as entry points and children as change agents. I think we heard Amar explaining about how they use schools and then working from there. I think it's very important as well. Distribute menstrual hygiene discreetly and together with information. I love when Lisa explained, you know, what it was very important for Vanuatu when distributing. I think it's very important to us, women and girls, how they would prefer menstrual hygiene items or kits to be distributed. Not only which are the preference from the items, but how they want that this distribution will happen. And make sure they don't feel embarrassed with this type of distribution, with the information and with the demonstration, and how how to use these items, no, together with the distribution. It's core. Then as well, what it was very important, and this we will highlight all the time, is the preference for different menstrual hygiene materials depend on many factors. Always based on what the distribution or your content, on what users need and prefer. It's not the same situation when there's lack of water. It's not the same situation urban versus rural. It's not the same preference as well from women in different stage of age. Yeah, it's different stage of life. You can have different type of preference, and beside of your culture and beside of as well different factors like water and sanitation facilities. And the last one, and for me, and I think it was from both presentation, it was inclusive wash facilities can bring huge improvement in dignity of females. Yes, because I mean, it's all aspects. It's not only the latrine. It's as well all aspects around changing menstrual hygiene material, personal hygiene, the bathing, the washing and drying, yeah, clothes, and the disposing of these menstrual hygiene materials. So these are my take-home messages. I hope you take them with you as well. I will want to thank again the speakers from today. I think it was a fantastic 2 presentations. I want as well to thank the participants. Hope you enjoy, like we enjoyed this first webinar, and I hope that you can join us in the next one, where we will learn together more about Red Cross and Red Crescent National Society's experience in menstrual hygiene management. So thanks. I don't know, Leticia, we are on time.
We are right
thanks,
on time,
everyone.
Alex. This is perfect.
So thanks to all, and I hope to see you soon in
Thank
next
you
month.
all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you, Alexandra, Leticia, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was nice, interesting.
Thank you. We've enjoyed.
Thank you all. See you at the next one.
You're most welcome.
Thank you.